Okay, let's talk about dating apps. For millions of us, they're just how modern romance works. But let's be real. You've also heard the horror stories, right? That they're addictive, that they're harmful, maybe even that they're designed to be broken. So what's the actual truth here? Today, we're going to dive into the science to find out. And let's just start with the biggest question on everyone's mind. Are these apps actually, designed to get us hooked? It's a claim you hear all the time, but to get a real answer, we've got to look at what the research actually says.
And our investigation really starts right here. Before we can even begin to talk about addiction or harm, we have to figure out what researchers even mean when they say problematic use. And spoiler alert, there is no single, simple answer.
And right away, we hit a pretty major snag. This is a summary from a review of 29 different studies, and it shows that the definition of problematic is, well, it's kind of messy. Turns out, researchers have defined it in at least 6 different ways.
So let's break down the top 3. Some studies say your use is problematic based on your motives, like why you're even on the app. Then you've got others that look at it through the lens of behavioral addiction, searching for those classic signs like losing control. And a third group, they focus on something they call compulsive use, which is basically not being able to stop swiping.
And this is where the definitions get, honestly, a little weird. Get this, some studies have actually classified using a dating app for its main purpose, to find a relationship or to have sex, as a problematic motive. Yeah, it's kind of like saying using a hammer to hit a nail is problematic behavior.
Okay, so the definitions are all over the place. We get it. But let's just put that aside for a second and look at the next part of the investigation. What are the actual harms that this problematic use is supposedly linked to?
This chart here basically gives us the rap sheet. Researchers have connected so-called problematic online dating to a whole bunch of negative outcomes, from emotional issues all the way to problems with picking a partner. Let's dig into the most common ones.
So what's number 1 on the list? Mood and emotional issues. We're talking about a connection to things like depression, sadness, and just general mental distress. And a whopping 11 different studies dug into this link.
Coming in at a close second, with 9 studies, is anxiety. And this covers a lot. Social anxiety, anxiety about your relationships, even the fear of being single. So, on the surface, you'd think the case is closed, right? The apps are bad,
And the list just keeps going. Other studies have linked this stuff to risky sexual behavior, feeling bad about yourself, body image problems, and even partner choice overload. You know that feeling of being totally overwhelmed by endless options? That's it. So yeah, the evidence looks pretty damning. But, and this is a big but, there's a twist.
And this is where our whole investigation takes a sharp turn. Because as it turns out, there's a massive, really critical flaw in how a lot of these studies are even designed.
This quote from the researchers who actually wrote the review paper says it all. These scales thus conflate predictor and outcome. What does that even mean? Well, in simple terms, it means they're mixing up the cause and the effect. They're baked right into each other from the start. Let me show you exactly what's going on. On the left is how they measure problematic use. The surveys ask questions like, do you use dating apps to forget about personal problems? But then, over on the right, the harmful outcome they're trying to link it to is depression or anxiety. You see the problem? They're basically asking you a question that's like, are you using this app because you feel bad? And then they act shocked when they find a link between using the app and feeling bad.
Here's a really simple way to think about it. It's like a survey asking, how often do you eat ice cream to feel less sad? And then publishing a big study that concludes ice cream is linked to sadness. It's a totally circular argument. It doesn't prove that one causes the other at all.
And this right here is kind of the final nail in the coffin for that simple apps are bad argument. Out of the 32 studies they looked at, a staggering 29 were just surveys, snapshots taken at a single point in time. Only 3 were actual experiments, and that's a huge deal. Why? Because those kinds of surveys can only show that 2 things are happening at the same time. That's correlation. They can't prove that one thing causes the other. That's causation. Big, big difference.
So, after all of that, what does the science really tell us about our relationship with dating apps? Let's break down the final verdict.
Okay, here's the bottom line. First, nobody can even agree on what problematic use actually is. Second, almost all the evidence we have is just correlation, not causation. Third, and this is the big one, many of the studies are built on a flawed, circular logic that mixes up the cause and the effect. So the big takeaway, we need much, much better research before we can make any of these grand claims.
Which leaves us with this final and, I think, really important question.
It's obvious that people can have negative experiences on these apps, but based on the science we have now, it's impossible to say that the app itself is the villain. So the next time you feel kind of down after a long swiping session, ask yourself, is the problem truly the app, or is it more about where we're at and how we're choosing to use it? Now that's something to think about.